Brothers and sisters of the sacred junk, welcome to the Burning Hand of Friendship, a channel devoted to the relics of pop culture that scrambled our brains and the physical media that built the mythos of a new age. And I'm your parasocial pal, friendo number 2, the conscientious vampire and the movie guy for the Burning Hand of Friendship. And it's Criterion time again. And as you can see, I succumbed to the Barnes and Noble's 50% Criterion madness and threw all my money away. And these are not even all the movies I picked up, but I'll show them all to you. A mix of cult classics and classics. But enough of this intro. Let us explore the treasures I found. And we start with the Pee-wee's A Big Adventure in the 4K, which was one of my favorite movies when I was around 11 years old. So it's pretty wild and exciting that it's now in the Criterion collection. I mean, this is no Andrei Rublev, you know, but here we are. But this is an 80s Stone Cold classic and a big upgrade for me from my standard DVD. And of course, this was directed by Tim Burton. What a pretty solid streak of movies after this, all the way up till the late 90s. Like Ed Wood, which is probably his best movie, that deserves a Criterion release. But Pee-wee's Big Adventure is also one of his best and one of the silliest movies ever made. And obviously, if you hate a Pee-wee, you'll probably hate this, even though it's absolute eye candy. And if you have no soul, well, that would be another reason for not liking this. But anyways, I also have to mention that this was co-written by the late Phil Hartman, who is one of my favorite comedians. Unfortunately, I think they had a falling out after the movie. But anyway, I'm happy to have this in the collection again. And next we have A Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch from 1995, and this is probably one of his best movies in my opinion. And of course Johnny Depp is in this, but Guy Farmer is the one who really steals the show in this, if you ask me. And the movie plays out like an existential body flick, but set in a western with a beautiful black and white cinematography. And I'm so glad I waited for the 4K because I almost upgraded to the Blu-ray during previous sales. And to me, this is a 90s classic that deserves the 4K love. I also have to mention this has a bunch of cool cameos, like you got Iggy Pop, Crispin Glover, and Billy Bob Thornton, just to name a few. You're always hanging out with interesting characters. And I also have to mention the cool neo-western score by rock legend Neil Young, which is a soundtrack I highly recommend. So, glad to welcome it into the collection. And next we have the Parallax View from a 1974 starring Warren Beatty, who plays a journalist investigating an assassination that pulls him into a web of conspiracies involving a multinational corporation. Now, this is kind of a blind buy for me because I actually fell asleep trying to watch this years ago as a teenager with my papa. So I'm okay just picking up the Blu-ray for now, just in case I end up absolutely hating it. That said, it is considered one of the top-tier conspiracy thrillers of the 1970s. And the next kiss on my list is Monty Python's Life of Brian from a 1979, directed by Terry Jones and written by Graham Chapman, John Cleese, and Terry Gilliam, all members of the Monty Python. And believe it or not, this was a pretty controversial film in its day because it dared to poke fun at religion. The story follows Brian of Nazareth, who is born in a stable right next door to Jesus Christ. And we follow his journey as he constantly gets mistaken for the Messiah. And as you can imagine, some people found it rude and blasphemous. Now, my Catholic family did not, because we all watched this together on the VHS. But I will say this, even though I really like this movie, it's probably my least favorite when compared to Monty Python and the Holy Grail or The Meaning of Life. Those two I'd recommend first if you've never had a taste of dry, absurd English humor. But The Life of Brian is still very enjoyable, and if you can have a sense of humor about religion, then maybe give it a try. And next we have a network from a 1976 directed by Sidney Lumet. And this is another stone cold 70s classic and a well-deserved upgrade from my standard DVD. This is also one of my favorite movies, a high-tension drama and dark comedy that perfectly captures that late 70s dread, which should still resonate today, especially when it digs into the world of network television and the illusion it's constantly trying to sell us, all the while we're being manipulated by multinational corporations. It's a pretty dire warning that a lot of us mistook for fiction. Now, if you've never seen this one, I highly recommend. It's easily one of the best films of its era, and even won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, and absolutely must watch for any fan of 70s cinema. Next, we have Brian De Palma's Dress to Kill from a 1980 starring Michael Caine and Angie Dickinson. And it's just a Blu-ray since Criterion has yet to give us a 4K upgrade, which honestly, it's fine because I don't really need this in the 4K. But this is one I caught late at night on cable TV when I was way too young, especially considering all the horny moments in this. But it's really a solid De Palma thriller that's heavily influenced by Hitchcock while mixing in psychosexual elements that gave it a unique edge back in 1980. It's the kind of film that a lot of thrillers that came after clearly borrowed from, and you get a wonderfully tense score by Pino Donaggio, who really taps into that Bernard Herrmann vibe. Anyways, I don't want to reveal too much, as this is best experienced knowing as little as possible, but if you're into thrillers, giallo, and slashers, I highly recommend. And next we have Point Blank from a 1967, directed by John Boorman, who's probably better known for Excalibur, or my personal favorite, The Ridiculous Zardoz, which is a bona fide cult classic. But with Point Blank, the only ridiculous thing about it is just how good it is and influential it's been. Filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino and Steven Soderbergh have cited it as an inspiration, especially Soderbergh's The Limey. That film owns its life to Point Blank. But here, you got Liam Marvin playing the cool, tough guy, out for revenge and determined to collect what's owed to him, all wrapped up in a gorgeous, colorful neo-noir that feels like a head trip thanks to its non-linear storytelling. It's definitely worth picking up, even if it's just a cheaper Warner Brothers Blu-ray. But I'm certainly glad I held out for the 4K. And next we have Lenny, directed by Bob Fosse, the dude who gave us All That Jazz, which is a film I highly recommend. But this one was released in 1974, and it's a biographical film based on the life of Lenny Bruce. And he was a groundbreaking and controversial stand-up comedian whose work in the 1950s and 60s pushed the boundaries of free speech and helped shape modern stand-up comedy as we know it. And of course, it stars Dustin Hoffman in the titular role. And this is one I actually haven't seen. It's been on my radar for quite some time. And it was also out of print, as Twilight Time did a limited release back in 2015. But now, I have no excuses. So welcome to the collection, Lenny. And this one I grabbed without thinking, as my original DVD died of disc rot, and I've been wanting this one since it was announced. But here we are with Eyes Wide Shut by Stanley Kubrick, his last official movie from 1999, and it's about rich, horny people and their orgies. But as we all know, Criterion announced the big fat Stanley Kubrick box set that is coming out at the end of the year, so I should have saved my money, as I will definitely double dip. But such is life, my friends, and happy to have it back into the collection. And my next pick was The Umbrellas of Cherbourg from a 1964, directed by Jacques Denis and starring Catherine Deneuve. And this was another blind buy, but one that was highly recommended to me by many. And I was a bit worried, as it is a musical and I'm not a big show tune guy. But once I looked at the previews, it was absolute eye candy and needed to investigate further. So wish me luck on my first musical in quite some time. And before we get to the grand finale, let's take a quick look at the spines. and also give you a gentle reminder that if you are enjoying this video and the spirit of Stanley Kubrick moved you, bless that like button and tap subscribe to seal your fate among the initiated. And here we are with my last pick of this haul, which was just released this month. The Elephant Man in the 4K from a 1980, directed by one of my absolute favorite directors, David Lynch. And this one has been out of print for a couple of years now, which had me in a panic because I've been wanting to upgrade it for some time and almost pulled the trigger a few times on inflated third-party prices. But thank the movie gods that I waited. So this is David Lynch's first Hollywood movie, financed by Mel Brooks, which wasn't widely known at the time because Mel didn't want his name attached to such a serious movie, as his name is connected with comedies. But let me tell you, this is a seriously good movie, one that I usually recommend to those who are not a big fan of David Lynch's more surreal work, as this film is much more grounded with a lot of heart. And if the story doesn't move you, you might want to check in with your soul because it might be dead. But here you have Anthony Hopkins co-starring with John Hurt as the Elephant Man, who absolutely makes you sympathize with the hideous creature. A great performance for someone covered in prosthetics, and it's all based on a true story. Well executed and stunningly shot. A must-watch in my humble opinion. So welcome back to the collection, The Elephant Man. And that is all I have for now, brothers and sisters of the Sacred Junk. I do have another Criterion haul coming soon, as I will be doing my final Criterion sweep before the sale ends. So make sure the notifications are on. But until then, I will smell you later.